before we get started, I do want to recognize and thank all the people who have served in our military, armed forces, who have served in our police, who have served in our rescue. Some of you may not know this, well, most of you don't know this, so I'm just gonna say it. In 2012, my heart stopped and I was pronounced dead. But because the town of Ashland pays for an extra police force, there was somebody who could respond to me. Now, we have a train that runs through our town. It's a beautiful train, we love our train. But that train prevented the ambulance rescue squad that's in the town from getting to me. So we had to rely on Hanover County's Beaver Dam squad to get to me, which took another 12 minutes. So if it wasn't for that trained officer, someone who served, now I know that's not necessarily military, but to me it's the same. It's the same as somebody who sacrificed their life to save other lives. And so I'm here for that. And so I'm sure there's many people who have similar situations where someone who's been overseas has served and saved their lives. There's been people that have served in our country who have saved their lives. So in recognition of Veterans Day and just all of them, I just want to give a moment of silence saying thank you to any of you who are on this board, who are in this public, who have served in any capacity, beyond our elected officials capacity, but who really have done service to our community. So please join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. Can you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks. I have on here welcome and introductions, but I am Daniel McGraw. I'm from the town of Ashland. I don't want to spend too much time going around the room this time around because we did introductions earlier, but I do want to congratulate all of you who have won your elections, and I want to commiserate with any of you who have feelings that you thought it could have gone a different way. I don't know. Or maybe commiserate with you for winning your election. It's like a sentence, you know. It's interesting in the elected world, it really is, and in the appointed world, where you look at a body and you think, oh, that group of people could do X. And then you get in there and you realize there's more work to be done to get to that part. So I appreciate your service and your willingness to come. Ms. Scott, can we have a roll call of attendees?
Yes, sir. Town of Ashland, Mr. Chambers.
Here.
Chair McGraw.
Here.
Mayor Trevette. Charles City County, Mr. Atkins.
Present.
Chesterfield County, Mr. Carroll. Mr.
He's on his
Dave.
way.
Thank you.
I can vouch for him. Okay? You can check him out.
I got throw a lot.
He said that with authority.
The lawyer might have a problem with it, but.
Just wait.
Mr. Davy.
Here.
Mr. Holland.
Here.
I can vouch
Mr. Engel.
Here.
Yeah, I can vouch for him too.
Dr. Miller.
I'm here.
Mr. Petrosky.
Here.
And Ms. Schneider. Here. Richland County, Mr. Cosby.
Here.
Mr. Lyle. Mr. Spoonhour.
Here.
Hanover County, Mr. Davis.
Here.
Ms. Dibble. Mr. Ledbetter. Ms. Pritchard. Mr. Waddell.
Present.
Henrico County, Mr. Bast.
Here.
Mr. Cooper.
Present.
Mr. Mackey.
Present.
Reverend Nelson.
Present.
Mr. Rogish.
Here.
Mr. Schmidt. Ms. Whitehead. New Kent County, Mr. Hathaway.
Here.
Ms. Pearson. Vice Chair Stewart.
Here.
Powhatan County, Mr. Donati. Mr. McClung. Mr. Powers. Ms. Winnell. City of Richmond, Mr. Addison. Mr. George. Dr. Newbill,
Here.
Mr. Poole, and Ms. Robertson. That concludes the roll call for attendance. We do have a quorum.
And we can confirm that Mr. Carroll is here.
Thank you.
There's no guarantee that would happen.
See, Mr. Holland's got a good word.
Yeah, unless somebody zapped it to space, he's okay. You know, that he zapped you up to space shuttle. I was counting, that wouldn't happen.
What's in the coffee?
I don't know.
It's just in Chesterfield, so.
So do we have any members trying to participate remotely? I didn't get a notice and I don't see anybody, but, okay, so we'll move over, to A, and we'll have consideration to amendments to the agenda. We have a standing committee and other reports. We have, partner reports. We have a special program on drug trends in the Richmond region. We have, member comments and locality updates. And that's it. So any consideration for amendment to the agenda? All right, we'll keep it going. We are now to C, public comment period. This is time for anybody from the audience or the public to speak as they would like. Is there anybody online? No, so we'll close public comment period. Approval of our September 12th, 2024 minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Presented? Good.
Second.
All right, so we have a move and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign? All right, it's approved. Standing committee reports. Let's see, executive committee survey. We conducted a survey. I'm not sure if all of you got to talk to some of your executive committee members, but we did a survey of what PlanRVA does for our localities. And, let's see if I can pull this up correctly. And we just wanted to see, is PlanRVA doing the things that we think PlanRVA should be doing? Are we meeting our goals? And in general, I would say yes. Well, not more than just, yes, PlanRVA is meeting its expectations. We seem to have more expectations, like we want to get even better. And so there are a few things that I just wanted to point out that on the regional issues and effectiveness, it looks like the PlanRVA is doing everything that it should be doing as far as data collection, reporting to our localities, and communicating with our people. But there does seem to be a small area of growth, and I say this because I encourage you to go back to your localities and encourage them to seek out opportunities, because you don't know what you don't know. And so what came out of our meeting was, and from what I understood, and people can correct me, was that, oh, I didn't realize that we could ask for that. I didn't realize that we could get this service. And so I encourage you to ask your staff members or even your own commissions or yourself to reach out to people in this room or around the region saying, what services are you receiving from PlanRVA and how is it impacting you? And it might be a service that you could receive. Already we're all receiving what the mission is saying, like they're meeting the mission. But the purpose of that survey was to set a ground point so that at the end of the year we could evaluate, is PlanRVA improving, staying the same, and or does it need more growth? So I say that just to give you an idea on that. We have, is there anything else to add to that? From any of the executive committee members? Okay. We have a joint annual meeting December 5th. That'll be 8:30 a.m. Here. And I think that's it for my chair report. Yeah, so we'll move. Hold on, where's the mic? Sorry. Audit and finance, Mr. Holland.
Yes, sir. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, and everyone and team. Pleased to present the Audit and Finance Facilities Committee report, which is our annual audit. I refer you to page 7 of your packet, if you will. The committee met on October 28, 2024, to review the audited financial statements for fiscal year ending June 2024. Reviewed the auditor's opinion with Mark Rose from Dunham Account and Rose Professional Corporation. The commission finished the year with total revenues exceeding expenses, resulting in contributions of $72,321 to the undesignated fund balance, bringing the total to $1,246,591. In addition, we received an unmodified opinion from the auditor, which is the very best opinion one can receive. Mr. Rose is attending this morning virtually and is available to answer any questions from the commissioners. I also recognize Ms. Jill Slinger, who's next to me. I like her smile. Jill, PlanRVA, interim CFO contracted through Warren Whitney, and thanks Diane Russo and Karen Robbins for their work to support this year's audit process. They did a tremendous job under interesting circumstances, I would say. The committee voted to recommend the commission's acceptance of the fiscal year 2024 audited financial statements and report. Being a recommendation from the committee, our motion does not require a second. Therefore, I recommend we accept the audit financial results as presented, starting on page 7 with the associated notes to the financial statements.
Any discussion?
Yeah, I do have just one question.
Yes,
It's on page 8,
Page 8,
and it's got 16 below it. Notice an increase from 2023 to 2024 in federal grants. Are those one-time grants, or is it recurring that Ms. Williams may have found?
page 8.
Yeah, yes.
Oh, you did.
It's got 16 on the bottom.
Okay, I got you. Yeah, you get a double numbers.
Page 816.
We might want
It's
the number.
816.
We're not all over the place. I see
It's
that
like
well,
scripture.
sir. I'm looking at it now, and referring to grant appropriation. Your question specifically is this a one-time or ongoing grant? Is that what you?
Well, is the increase in federal grants an ongoing thing, or is it just a one year?
I think it's ongoing.
Yeah, I think to give Emily Williams, our new grant specialist, the credit that's due, I don't know that her efforts are necessarily reflected in these financial statements from ending June 30th, but we are seeing an uptick in grants, mostly from the federal awards, and that is definitely a result of her efforts. The variance here in these numbers are more reflective of utilization of existing grants that were already in play. So her efforts are really gonna be seen in this coming, in the current fiscal year.
Thank you.
We're on the move. Thank you for that. So there's a motion on the floor to accept the audit for fiscal year 24.
I wanna make sure that people still have a chance to discuss
Okay,
if there's any.
okay, I'll pause.
No, that's fine, I just wanna make sure that people have a chance to answer questions. All right, not seeing any, there's a motion on the floor, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion is approved.
And also, let me see what else.
Your financial reports,
Okay, financial report, first quarter of
First quarter.
2025, page 58 of your report, if you would. You'll see the first quarter.
lowercase 58.
Yeah, page 58. Yeah, this is.
Oh, it's actually 58.
And there's no scripture with that one, it's just 58.
No.
It's because it's not part of the audit, I think, it's the next.
Yeah, page 58. So you can see they start page 58, continue, this profit and loss statement on page 59. We determine it, and then of course on through, final reports. And we can see through first quarter, we have net income, which is positive, and thank goodness for that. And that's 28,000.
It's actually negative.
Actually,
I'm sure, it's a small deficit, but
It looks positive.
it's
Yeah,
just
but-
temporary.
Okay,
I've already done the October financials.
okay, very good. Well,
I'll wait for
I
tomorrow.
yield to our CFO.
Yeah.
I yield to her until I can read it better. Okay. All right, as shown, which, occasionally happens. All right, what else is there? We don't need a motion on that.
Correct.
How about, and of course, item 3, if you're ready to skip there, unless there are any questions on the first quarter, any comments by way regarding the first quarter? Martha or Jill, any comments you'd like to make? Or we-
I mean, I will just note that it's not unusual for us in the first quarter
Right.
to have a deficit. We're gonna be, calibrating as we go. Our team meets after every close of the pay period to review where we are with time and budgets, and, Jill has been working with our team to make sure that time is being spent in grant awards. So I think by the time the board sees the financial statements again in February, we'll see a much clearer sense of where we are with grant awards and year-to-date performance. So certainly don't wanna minimize a deficit for the year-to-date, but I don't think we feel like it's at all indicative of where we're headed.
Yeah, one quarter doesn't make a year. In other words, one quarter does not make a year. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so, don't move. All right,
Any other comments on the first quarter? And typically, this is where we are. We typically start off slow and then end strong. All right, moving on to local member dues.
yeah, member dues, Martha, would you care to elaborate? During our meeting, we also voted, let me just also comment here, we also voted during our October 28th meeting to increase local dues from 60 cents per capita to 5.05 to 65 cents per capita, effective July 1, 2025. A table summarizing the report and population for each locality serving as a basis for assessment can be found on page 65 of the meeting packet. So looking at page 65, we can see how the dues assessment is apportioned by member localities. With 5% increase to a total of, again, 65% increase. All right.
Yes.
Mr. Holland, can you explain what the population adjustment is? Can you tell me what?
Yeah, I'm glad.
Why there's a large
Yeah.
difference there,
Yeah, the population adjustment here
the
is,
2022?
yeah, I'm glad you asked that, because I had a footnote there.
Okay.
Thank you. But anyway, Chesterfield is split between two jurisdictions.
Oh, that's
Crater.
right, oh, got it.
We're Crater and we are
We were just
local.
talking about that.
So I asked them to footnote there, so that question I knew would come up.
Okay.
And so Martha, anything else you'd like to share regarding, and then you have Ashland and Hanover here.
Yes, if
We
you
don't like
wanna,
to overburden the locality, thank you.
it might be easiest to look at pages 65 and 66 side by side.
Yeah,
The calculation for as Mr. Holland mentioned, the calculation for the split for Chesterfield County is actually carried over to page 66.
yes,
So we prorate and this is the same thing that we do for Ashland and Hanover. We prorate the percentage share by population from the 2020 reported census, and then we just apply that percentage for every annual update. And so the Chesterfield population is reduced to accommodate for that dual MPO membership. And I'll just note, Mr. Atkins, I know we talked about this in the Finance Committee meeting. For whatever reason, we do this for Chesterfield, we do not do the same thing for Charles City, who's also a dual
I'm
member.
not sure why.
I don't have an explanation for why, it's what we do though. So happy to talk about that if we need to level things out.
It's not an issue right now.
Thank you.
okay, thank you.
Can you remind me, do we typically increase the per capita amount every year?
No.
It's been a couple of years, kind of where are we trending with this update? What do we?
I'm trying to recollect, Martha, you can help me here. We don't increase them each year. In fact, I think we may have reduced dues a few years ago to 55, you may remember, just before the pandemic. I think we reduced dues at that point to localities. So, but no, it's not annual exercise, this is a one-time exercise.
We have not increased the dues rate in my tenure, which is 9 years. And in talking with the managers, we have not increased the dues rate prior to that for recollection of the sitting administrators. Mr. Holland is correct, we did do a temporary reduction of dues, we backed it to 50 cents per capita during the pandemic. In anticipation, we weren't quite sure what was gonna happen with federal aid, and so we did, but then we returned to the 55 cents per capita 2 years ago. And so this dues increase of 5 cents per capita to 65 would be the first time in the last decade with certainty.
Just to be clear though, you said the 55, but it's 60 right now, right?
I apologize, we backed it to 55, I'm sorry, I said, thank you. So it's, yes, it's currently 60 cents per capita,
And it would go to
it
65.
would go to 65,
Right, okay.
yes.
Just wanna make sure.
Apologies, thank you for that.
Yeah, so it's not an annual exercise, as no.
We do review the rate every year, but the action has not, we've not proposed, nor has the board taken action to change the rate in the last 10 years.
All right, so, as noted there, being a recommendation from the committee, our motion, does not require a second.
Alright, so we have a motion on the table, any further discussion?
The only thing I like to add is, if we're doing this, this is the right time to do it, because we're all getting ready to go into budget season. If we tried to do this in April, May, it'd be a problem. So if there's gonna be a review, it needs to be around now.
Yes, I'll echo that. Our first application for funding actually just hit my inbox on Tuesday this week from New Kent County, and it is due at the end of this month. So you are absolutely right, the requests are happening right now.
Mr. Spoonhouse?
Yeah, thanks. So I wanna start by saying,
Yes.
if there's an increase, Goochland will definitely receive more benefit than we're paying out, so we are very appreciative of that. That being said, I did vote for this to come through from Finance Committee just to have this discussion, but I haven't heard a compelling reason why last year we ended up $72,000 revenue exceeding expenses by 72,000, why we're looking to increase dues to get another $55,000. It just doesn't, I just haven't heard a compelling reason at this point to support this.
Yeah, we're looking to, also, we have on the agenda for the Finance Committee, a reassessment of of our fund balance. You know, our fund balance has been undergoing, we have $1 million, and of course, the committee is looking at what is the appropriate fund balance given this new location. We haven't done the assessment yet. The assessment's ongoing, so there are other financial pressures as well that we all face. So that's one I would see certainly as make sure that we are able to maintain at the appropriate level, the appropriate fund balance, which we'll review currently.
Commissioner Snyder, you had a comment?
Again, I wasn't here at that time, but does our PlanRVA get the ARPA, did they get any of the ARPA funds and stuff like that as part of the grant? Okay, so that was only localities, yeah. So those are running out, and that's.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah, let's not hear from others.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
question. Could it be that we anticipate increases in expenses based on inflation and the cost of operation? Is that what the proposal is for, to anticipate those? I know that, as Mr. Spoonhour said last year, you know, we had concluded with $72,000 still in there, and Mr. Holland talked about what our reserve should be, but you know, we all know, for example, even the cost of transportation projects has increased by over 30%. And so the question is, are we trying to anticipate those increases? Is that what this is for?
I'll let Ms. Schickel answer these questions, but before I turn that over, the person who was in my seat prior to me said the early mission was to make sure we had $1 million in reserve. And it was a long time we did not have that. And it was around the pandemic time that we kind of got to that point. And so I know that is a big part of the mission of finance to have that in reserve. And then I'll let Ms. Schickel explain or answer the questions that were raised by Mr. Schoonhour and Mr. Carroll.
I think there's three primary drivers. The first is what members have already alluded to. As we go into the conversation in evaluating whether or not the $1 million target for the fund balance is appropriate, the factor about where cost of operating is headed is a question mark. And so certainly the dues increase helps to be able to mitigate for that. The other two, I would say, primary drivers are that our ability to go after federal and state grant opportunities is limited by the amount of the dollars we have to match those applications. And so particularly right now, as we are still in the midst of availability of funding through the infrastructure bill and other federally funded one-time programs, we have this opportunity to be able to chase down new grant opportunities. So Mr. Waddell, you asked that question earlier about Ms. Williams. It's been a big focus of the last 8 months of her employment here. And so the per capita assessment will increase our capacity to go after new grant opportunities to fulfill that match obligation. In addition to that, the conversation that I had with the local government managers was our commitment to increase our capacity around data and research. And so my intention would be to program this additional, if you think about it that way, that second to last column, the 5 cents per capita represents $55,624. My intention would be to program that $55,000 directly to our data team to be able to assure that we have the capacity to support our data and research capabilities. Currently, that team is financed through grant awards, which means that we can really only move our data program forward on the topics and on the data questions, analysis questions that answer grant opportunities. We don't have the unrestricted dollars to be able to advance that particular mission of this organization forward. And so that would be the goal, that we would be able to tag this particular $55,000 in operating next fiscal year to that particular focus area, but enable to sustain that data resource over time by having it be a dues increase as opposed to, say, a one-time assessment. I met with the local government administrators earlier in the month in October to talk this through, and it was their recommendation that we move forward with a dues increase as opposed to some other type of assessment or financing for this, so that we would be able to kind of keep the pace, as everyone's saying, with cost of increasing business, but also to be able to invest in the capacity of our agency.
Does that answer the question enough? Does it still, you still feel it's not a?
It does, and I appreciate the context, because we, just asked for the increase without any context. I don't think it's a great way to get consensus. I will tell you, in Goochland, we've advised our county administrator to keep the budget flat from last year. We're not anticipating any increases. I think, we saw huge revenue swings when real estate prices went up, and we're just not counting on that moving forward. So we're keeping our expenditures exactly where they were last year at this time as we're walking into it. So that's just sort of the mindset that we're taking, is we made hay while the sun shined. It may not be shining, as we don't know what it's gonna be shining like in the future.
So point.
Any other discussion, comment? All right, motion's on the table. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Mr. Chair, I might request, and I apologize to everyone, but if we could do a roll call vote, as this is related to our finances.
Certainly. I'm happy with that. We can do a roll call.
Why
Mr.
not the cat out
Chambers?
of the bag?
Sorry.
That's fine.
Mr. Chambers? Chair McGraw?
Aye.
Mr. Atkins?
Aye.
Mr. Carroll?
Aye.
Mr. Davy?
Aye.
Mr. Holland?
Aye.
Mr. Ingram?
Aye.
Dr. Miller?
Aye.
Mr. Cosby? Mr. Spoonhour?
Nay.
Mr. Davis?
Aye.
Mr. Waddell?
Aye.
Mr. Bast?
Aye.
Mr. Cooper?
He just left.
Oh, sorry, thank you. Mr. Mackey?
Aye.
Reverend Nelson?
Aye.
Mr. Rogish?
Aye.
Mr. Hathaway?
Aye.
Vice Chair Stewart? And Dr. Newbill?
Aye.
That motion
I
carries.
think you missed.
I wasn't in.
I'm
I
sorry.
think you missed, Ms. Snyder and
Chesterfield, sir.
Mr. Petrosky.
Ms. Schneider? And I'm sorry, did I miss? Mr. Petrosky, I'm sorry.
Aye.
Thank you.
Do we need I'll just ask our attorney, do we need 100% approval for this? Is it?
No, sir.
Alright, so the motion carries. Executive Director's Report.
Thank you. I just wanted to highlight 3 upcoming events in addition to the material that's included in the packet. Wanted to announce that PlanRVA is hosting the 2024 Regional Action Summit on November 19th. That's next Tuesday from 8:30 to 8:30 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. at Bright Point Community College. We did have a discussion at the executive committee meeting this morning, and we certainly recognize that each of your jurisdictions have procedures and policies in place for attendance at events like this. And so I acknowledge that and recognize it, but I was asked to share with all of you that local elected officials registration for this event, which is at $199 as the regular fee, is gonna be waived for elected officials who would like to attend. So just sharing that information. If you are interested in knowing what the event is or the agenda, you can certainly reach out to me or Janice and we can give you help in registering. In addition, on December 6th, the Virginia Chamber is hosting the 2024 Virginia Economic Summit and Forum on International Trade at the Convention Center here downtown. It starts at 9 o'clock in the morning and goes through 2:45 in the afternoon. We, PlanRVA, are participating hosts this year, and as a result of that, have 5 complimentary registrations for the event. So if anyone is interested in attending that event, please do let me or Janice know. And then finally, just wanted to put on your radar, many of you might be on the mailing list, but Partnership for Housing Affordability's 2025 State of Housing event for the Richmond region is scheduled for January 23rd, 2025, for 4 to 7 p.m. at the Virginia Museum of History and Culture. I'm highlighting these 3 events because of our organization's support and partnership of those, but we'll try to keep you updated as deadlines and things like that come closer, but just wanted to flag those for you. I also just wanted to share that last night, Janice and I had the pleasure of attending the New Kent County Board of Supervisors meeting. We were there for a pretty special reason. I think we announced this earlier, but just wanted to close the loop. Earlier this year, Janice prepared a nomination for Patricia Page to be recognized through the Virginia Association of Planning District Commission's Gordon Dixon Award, which is a service award for exemplary leadership when it comes to regional cooperation and leadership. And so we were able to present that award plaque to Mrs. Page's sister last night. Her name is Sandy Godwin, and also to be able to do that in a public setting in front of the Board of Supervisors. And I think coming off of the heels of the VACO conference earlier this week, the chairman had really some nice comments to hear of the love and affection that people across the Commonwealth have for Mrs. Page. So we were glad to be there, and it was a fun meeting to watch some of the new things that are going on in New Kent County around amenities and investment. So thanks for allowing us to be there, and really appreciated that opportunity. And that concludes my report, if there aren't any questions.
One quick question, the events that you mentioned, including the Affordable Housing Conference in January, were in the October newsletter. And that's very timely. Could you repeat that?
Yes, sir.
Thanks.
We will do that.
I do my homework and love
Thank
reading
you.
the newsletter. Thank you.
I love hearing that. Thank you.
Yeah, and just for context, because I don't assume everyone knows Patricia Page and remembers her work. She recently passed away. She was a member of our executive committee. She was on slate to be chair. But what she did for the and she got to see the approval of the project. It was pretty much a late in life mission. But every meeting she went to, she was like, we need to expand and widen 64. And there were some meetings that I recall people at where they said, can we stop talking about expanding 64? And she goes, sure, as soon as we expand it, we can stop talking about it. And I just appreciate someone with that tenacity to see it through. And I'm super happy that she got to see the day that it got approved. She didn't get to see the widening, but at least her name will be there in recognition. So I didn't know if you wanted to spend more, but I was on the board with her, so
No, you said it all. There's nothing that I need to say. To Ms. Schickel, please come back anytime to our board meetings. They are very exciting.
That is great. Still with Ms. Schickel, partner, information on newsletter, CBTA report.
Yes, we hyperlinked the newsletter, so if you haven't had a chance to read it yet, it sounds like Mr. Waddell is the advocate for that, so thank you. I don't know, Mr. Parsons or Mr. Davis, if either of you have updates from the CBTA report, but would welcome that.
Ms. Parsons?
He'll be brief.
Good morning.
Morning.
Thank you for the opportunity to share the updates with you. You will see on page 70 of the packet that the authority last met on September 27th, and our next meeting is scheduled for tomorrow morning. We did some highlights from the meeting. Obviously, we love to talk about implementing projects. So we had 5 different standard project agreements approved for projects in Henrico, the city of Richmond, and managed by VDOT, including the Fall Line, North-South BRT, Route 60, 33 and Beulah Roundabout, Route 5 and New Osborne Turnpike improvements, and Full Street Phase 2. So those projects are now in the phase where we can receive reimbursement requests for the actual work that's being done. And hopefully we're gonna see this regularly from meeting to meeting. We did have both of our advisory committees met in October, the TAC and the Finance Committee, and are moving forward with a number of different things that are on the agenda tomorrow, including updates to the regional project selection allocation framework, which is our data-driven process for how projects are selected. And we are moving forward with plans to join you all in December for the joint annual meeting, and look forward to that opportunity. May have to take any questions.
I have one, it's really just informational, if you can answer it. Is there a projected when the Fall Line Trail will be completed?
There's still a bigger than a handful of funding that's necessary. The projections right now are to continue with the final segments in a kind of a case-by-case basis, applying for smart scale funds, applying for CBTA regional funds. My hope is that the intent was initially that it would take less time than the capital trail took to build, and we're still on track, but we could certainly use some help.
All right, any other questions for anyone? All right, thank you. Thank you.
The other 2 reports, just wanted to call your attention. This is first or second month that we've included the Emergency Management Alliance report, so that'll become a monthly staple. Lots of activity, as you can see, happening in that area, and so we wanted to make sure that you have that available. We provide these to you so that it can be a quick reference. If you do have a practice of going back to your local board or council to provide updates, we hope that it's just a quick kind of update. If there's something you want to include in your citizen newsletters or things like that, it could just be a resource, and we can always provide more information, but we've endeavored to keep these at roughly a page so that it doesn't become too lengthy. But that's the purpose of it, just to kind of keep you apprised of what's going on with the other groups that are operating in this domain. That's it.
Any questions for Ms. Miller? Do you want to talk about our TPO as well, or same thing?
It's included there.
Just
The last meeting was on October 31st. Big agenda item there was just a slew of TIP amendments, mostly around project closeouts and existing approved projects that just needed more dollars to be allocated. But we also, I think the biggest action item of that meeting was to update the regional framework revision. So we've moved to a biennial cycle that aligns with the other funding program cycle. So we've got year 1 is smart scale, year 2 on the off cycle is the other funding programs, RSTP, CMAC. That aligns with the CBTA's funding schedule, so it helps to be able to build that pipeline of dollars to projects so that we can be as effective as possible in leveraging local dollars to go after competitive programs through smart scale. So it was an important decision, but really was the largest substance of the meeting, if I'm not mistaken, Dr. Newville. Yeah. So.
Excellent, thank you. Any other questions for Ms. Schickel? Alright, that brings us to our special program, our drug trends in the Richmond region. And I think it's timely, I think it's important to understand what's going on. Virginia, as a number of states, have decriminalized certain drugs, but at the same time, there's questions about what does that mean for our region? And also, what concerns we have with fentanyl and other things coming in. So, Mr. Smith, Brian Smith is a special agent with the Drug Enforcement Section of Virginia State Police, and will provide us with an overview of trends in the Richmond region related to drug enforcement. So, Mr. Smith, the floor is yours, and thank you for being here. Oh,
I'm
is
so
there
sorry, I have to apologize, I wrote Smith and I don't know where that came from. This is Brian Moore, Senior Special Agent.
Thanks, Brian Moore. That's what I meant to
I will
say.
take the last name Smith, that's fine with me, because my wife has called me a lot worse, so I'm comfortable with being
Well,
called.
thank you for your graciousness, but I do apologize, that's my fault and I'm so
Given
sorry.
the stage that this meeting started with, it's probably all in the coffee.
I understand.
So, thank you, Mr. Moore. I appreciate you being here. Thank you.
Absolutely, and I thank y'all for giving me the opportunity. My name is Brian Moore. I'm a Senior Special Agent with the Virginia State Police. I hope I pronounce it correctly, Ms. Schickel.
You should have butchered it so that you'd pay me back. You got it right.
Ms. Schickel reached out to our office and we corresponded with one another, and she asked if I could provide a few talking points on what's going on in and around this area. And I'm grateful to have the opportunity. I think one of the greatest things that we in law enforcement can do is to educate, is to put out what it is people want to know. And do it in a way that's not opinion, but it's data. And it's not only data that I produce to you, but data that each and every one of you can go find yourself. That is who I am, just as a background, because I think backgrounds of speakers have a little bit of bearing on the conversation. I've been with the state police since May of 2000. In November of 2006, I was promoted to the rank of special agent, and I was assigned to our Chesapeake field office, Bureau of Criminal Investigation Drug Enforcement Section. And then in August of 2013, I transferred to our Richmond field office. So I have been, effective the 25th of November, I will have been in our drug enforcement section for 18 years. And since August of 2013, I've been in our Richmond field office, which encompasses, I believe, every jurisdiction that has a seat at this table. We're hopefully going to go through this quickly because I was told about 20 to 25 minutes. When Ms. Schickel asked me, what are the trends, what are we seeing? I went to two different organizations. I went to the Department of Forensic Science and I went to the Virginia Department of Health. Everything on this presentation you can find through either one of those. I chose the Department of Forensic Science because as law enforcement, when we seize any type of drug, we are required to send it to the lab so that they can analyze it to tell us what it is that we have. Nowadays, just because you think it may be cocaine or Xanax or oxycodone or whatever, you have no idea what it is. Each of these graphs that you will see, it's based on submissions. Individual gets narcotic seized from them. It could be 1 gram of methamphetamine, or it could be 2 kilos of cocaine. Each is an individual submission. The top of the slide there, the most common substances identified, and this is for the entirety of the Commonwealth of Virginia in 2023. Methamphetamine, cocaine, and illicit synthetic opioids, which is fentanyl or some analog of fentanyl. And if you look at the graphs, those graphs are a breakdown of the entire Commonwealth from 2014 to 2023, a 10-year pattern of what type of drugs we're seeing. You see cocaine, about 2018, we hit our peak, and then it kind of started to fall off. And as you see across the state, we're actually trending in the wrong direction. Methamphetamine has really increased. In here recently, there's been a slight uptick. Heroin has absolutely fallen off. And in talking to the agents in my office, it is almost hard to find just heroin. 5 years ago, heroin was really popular. And then if you look at the next illicit synthetic opioids, or fentanyl, you see that as heroin dropped off, the rise of fentanyl. And what was happening was heroin was on the street, and then drug dealers, they want their stuff to be the best, the most powerful, the strongest. So they started mixing in fentanyl with heroin. And then they realized, well, I don't need as much fentanyl, and I really don't need any heroin. So people that thought they were purchasing heroin were really starting to purchase fentanyl. Prescription opioids, when I transferred up here in 2013, prescription drugs were everywhere. It was unbelievable. We had a lot of large cases on that, and I'm not sure who the entities were, but there were entities that said, we have a huge problem. We need to change legislation, we need to change laws, we need to change something to attack this crisis. And I think, at least in the Commonwealth of Virginia, that change that has happened over the years, prescription pills have really started to fall off. The first one of the top three is methamphetamine. And when I say methamphetamine, I mean crystal methamphetamine. 23% of all drug submissions to the labs in the Commonwealth of Virginia in the calendar year 2023, crystal methamphetamine. Almost a quarter of all drugs was one drug. Prior to about 2016, if you look on that graph, 2016 and prior, the methamphetamine that was in each of these jurisdictions was what is known as one-pot methamphetamine. Individuals were going to the Target and the Walmart and getting their pseudoephedrine and getting a bunch of chemicals we call precursors, and they were making it in bottles at home. Doing that, you get about, at best, 2 grams for every cook. And the purity for that is about 30%. So the ones making it were also the ones that were using it. If I am making 2 grams, I am using a gram, and then I am selling to get more pseudoephedrine. In 2016, crystal methamphetamine started to show up in and around this area. My first ever interaction with crystal meth, I was interviewing an individual that the Richmond Police Department had arrested. Female, about the age of 18. She had the user amount of crystal methamphetamine, and I asked her where she got it from. And she was at a party, a high school party, how, you're in high school and you go out to the middle of nowhere and you just have fun as a teenager. There was an individual there that was just giving it away to everybody. And she said, the last 3 parties, the same person has been there, he's giving it away, and I took it. They give it away so that individuals can get hooked on it, so that then they can start making money. And every area is saturated with crystal methamphetamine. Crystal methamphetamine typically is between 98 to 100% pure. In 2021, we had a lab analysis that came back from crystal methamphetamine that was 102% pure. I didn't think you could get anything above 100%, but it was actually 102% pure. In 2021, a pound of crystal methamphetamine cost about $11,000. Now today, 1 pound of crystal methamphetamine, depends on what jurisdiction you're in, $1,600 to $4,000, with the average being about $2,000. That is how saturated the entire Commonwealth, but this area is with crystal methamphetamine. You see the small uptick from 2022 to 2023, and based on the work that is being done in the conversations that I had with the agents in my office, I believe we're going to stay probably about the same, maybe if not more, from 2023 to 2024. Regionally, and this is a map that is broken down from the circuits for your courts, and I had no idea which circuit was, and I don't like to assume. I don't know if everybody in here knows which circuit they're in, but I wrote them down. Charles City is the 9th, Chesterfield the 12th, Goochland is the 16th, Hanover the 15th, Henrico the 14th, New Kent the 9th, Powhatan the 11th, and Richmond City is the 13th. So as you look at these maps, you can kind of see which circuit you fall in. And the darker the color blue on the map, the bigger the problem that the jurisdiction has. This was methamphetamine in 2013. The eastern side of the state wasn't awful. And then here it comes. 2018, now we're getting a little worse. 2023, that is a dark blue color across the entire Commonwealth, but regionally as well. It is everywhere. The entire Commonwealth, and it's not just the Commonwealth, but it's the United States of America, is saturated with crystal methamphetamine. Cocaine. Cocaine has been around forever, right? We have powder cocaine and we have crack cocaine. Cocaine was the number 2 drug for all drug submissions at 22%. So we have methamphetamine at 23% and cocaine at 22%. 47%, almost half of all drug submissions to drugs. If you look at the graph, you see 2018 over a 10-year period, that was the highest total for the 10 years. And then for whatever reason, it starts to trend down, and about 2021, 2022, we're starting to trend back up. 2023, we were close with submissions to 2018. I think 2024 will follow suit. I think that we will absolutely equal 2023, if not surpass it. It is in every community. Cocaine has been around probably longer than I have been around. It affects every community, every jurisdiction. And again, regionally, 2013, we were trending up. 2018, that was over the 10-year span, that was the max. 2023, the numbers are, at least they appear better, but remember, we're trending up. The amount of cocaine that is around this area is unbelievable. The prices for cocaine had dropped significantly. 2014, 2015, an ounce was about $1,500. Now it's probably about $500 to maybe $800. The lower the price, the more saturated the market. Cocaine is also one of those drugs, you think you're buying cocaine, but a lot of times you're not buying cocaine, you're buying fentanyl. And we'll get to fentanyl now. The lab calls it illicit synthetic opioids because it includes fentanyl, but every other analog of fentanyl. The most frequently submitted in the opioid drug category, it surpassed heroin and prescription opioids, 18% of all drug submissions. So we have 3 drugs that account for 65% of all drug submissions to the lab throughout the Commonwealth of Virginia. 2/3 of all submissions are from these 3 drugs. Fentanyl obviously being the most common. Fentanyl is used as a mixing agent. The scary part about fentanyl is it is in everything. If you think you're buying a prescription drug, whether it be Xanax, whether it be Oxy, whatever you think it is, if you're buying it on the street, you're probably buying fentanyl. It is cheaper to make the pill yourself and mix a little bit of fentanyl and to present it as oxycodone, Xanax, whatever it is you need, cocaine, heroin, whatever you need. There's a trend that has started with fentanyl that we are seeing definitely in the Richmond area. I don't know if y'all have heard the reports of xylazine, but xylazine is a very powerful horse tranquilizer. And if you recall at the beginning of my presentation to where I said drug dealers, they wanted their heroin to be the strongest and the best and the most powerful. So they started mixing heroin with fentanyl. Heroin went away and now it's fentanyl. That, for the sake of the terminology, that business model, I fear, is being replicated. Drug dealers want their fentanyl or their whatever to be the strongest, So we have to find something stronger than fentanyl. And they're mixing fentanyl, but also xylazine. Narcan is a medical intervention that can help with fentanyl, but it cannot help with xylazine. Your illicit synthetic opioids regionally, right? The map looks pretty good. 2018, it starts to get a little worse. 2023, now we're a pretty dark shade of blue. I think, again, 2024, you'll see our numbers surpass 2023. Take-home points, right? Things to think about. I truly believe, and I tell everybody, it doesn't matter what it is. Just one can kill. Just because you think you're buying fill in the blank doesn't mean that you're buying it. Automatically assume that it's a great possibility that it has fentanyl in it. And it doesn't take a lot of fentanyl, a few little granules, before you overdose and die without medical intervention. Narcan. I think Narcan is a very powerful tool, and I think it's a very important piece of the education that we need to put out. Where do we have our Narcan? Do we have them in our elementary schools, our middle schools, our high schools, our public facilities? Where do we have access to Narcan? Because you don't know where someone is going to choose to use a drug and overdose. The war on drugs is one person at a time, right? In order to make a difference, in order to try to help win the war, we have to personalize it. We have to reach one person at a time. In personalizing the battle, right? And know that it doesn't discriminate, right? Drug addiction affects any family, any walk of life, anybody. It does not discriminate. If you see something, whether it be a family member, a colleague, somebody you go to church with, maybe you're a coach of a team, one of your kids on your team, wherever you are, if somebody's behavior has changed, and in the back of your mind, you're like, something's not right. Maybe say something to them, have a conversation with them, or a parent, or a family member, because you may be the one that helps bring an intervention so that the next time that it was just one that they bought, it doesn't kill them. I'm gonna close on this, and we'll open it up to any questions that you may have. This is a chart that the Department of Health puts out. This is Q1 to Q2 of 2024. And the Department of Health tracks all hospital visits from hospitals or standalone emergency departments that are because of overdose. Their categories are a little more broad. It doesn't break it down drug by drug by drug. That's not every overdose that is happening in our jurisdictions, but I think it gives us a good understanding of how are we doing. And I think most of the jurisdictions here may fall into the central region. And as you see, the state Q1 to Q2 2024, there's a 5% increase, but in the central region, there is a 15% increase in the rate of hospital visits because of overdose in 2024. And the thing that struck me when I saw this, the 3 age groups that have experienced the highest rate of overdose for this time period. I see it as you have grandparents, you have parents, and you have children. 3 separate generations of people that are experiencing overdose. 0 to 14, that's why I say, do you have Narcan in your elementary school? Now, I think it's probably more the middle school age that is so high, but do we have access to it? Because remember, it's not just children that go to elementary schools. We have teachers, we have staff, we even have parents that come there. Do we have access to Narcan at all levels of our schools? This is my information. I am more than happy to come talk to anybody, to come to your jurisdiction, to talk about anything drug related. I believe, again, education is key. I believe in giving information that may possibly help in this fight. If you have any questions, if you need anything, please write it down, call me, leave a voicemail, or shoot me an email. I respond as quickly as I can, and I will be more than happy to help any one of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Very informative. I appreciate it. Any questions? Yeah.
Sure. So we know that, at least if you follow everything that the media reports, which sometimes is good, sometimes is bad, that we believe that a lot of the fentanyl's coming in over the border and in other ways into the country. The show Breaking Bad kind of sensationalized methamphetamines for about 5 years when it was on, from 2008 to, I think, 2013, 14, whenever it went off the air, and then it's been shown repeatedly in repeats. Do we think that, and without trying to give away too much information that someone could glean, that this stuff is being manufactured here in the United States, is it coming in from over the border? And in the analysis, does it look like they're, different, being produced in different quantities, different ways based on the chemical composition? Do you have any information on that?
Crystal methamphetamine is manufactured by cartels. It travels into the United States in a solid, usable form, or it's also transported in its liquid form, which means once it travels here, now we have to turn it back into a usable form, the ice, the product. One way or the other, it is manufactured by cartels and it comes into the United States of America that way. The fentanyl that we have is the illicit synthetic opioid. Synthetic is man-made. It is man-made, and however, the overwhelming majority of it comes into the country, either over the border or any border, but also people can get online and through the dark web buy whatever they want. Whether it be fentanyl, whether it be methamphetamine, whatever drug, if you have access to the dark web, you can order it and it can be shipped through the US Postal Service, through FedEx, through UPS, through any other carrier, directly to your home as well.
Thank you.
We'll come here and then we'll come back to you, Joanna.
Just a question, I'm appreciating all the facts that you've provided, because it's incredibly, it opens our eyes. I'm curious to know, what do you feel we could do to help? What could this committee do, this board do? So I'm kind of curious as to what your thoughts are around that.
I strongly believe in education. I truly think people don't understand how dangerous purchasing any drug is, just because of fentanyl and now because of xylazine. Any opportunities that you can to educate your audience in your own jurisdictions, and I also think that Narcan saves lives. The thinking about where is it that we have, my wife is a professor down at East Carolina University, and they have just closed their athletic training program, but she was over that, and she had athletic trainers in Pitt County high schools in North Carolina. And I asked her, do your athletic trainers have Narcan? Does the school nurse have Narcan? If not, why not? Why not build it into the emergency action plan of the school? Because at some point, something bad may happen, and you hope for the best, but you plan for the worst. And I think having Narcan out there that can be accessible to be utilized if needed is very powerful as well. But I just think continued education to let individuals know. Back in the 60s, that was a time of experimenting and having fun. If you experiment one time a day, it could cost you your life.
And just to make a distinction, in the 60s, we weren't talking about methamphetamine, we weren't talking about heroin, we weren't talking about cocaine.
Well, and I think we weren't talking at all about fentanyl.
Exactly, so to make the distinction between the 60s and now may be inaccurate, but I do want to make the point that, full disclosure, I have a PhD in clinical psychology. I'm licensed as a professional counselor, certified as a substance abuse counselor, and I've been working with folks for the last 25 years. So my question really is around, I know that education is very important, but we also know that we shouldn't drive too fast. We know all of these things. We know we should stay away from sugar. So one is a cognitive process. So what I'm interested in is being able to identify, and would love to talk to you more about that.
Absolutely.
Education, incredibly important.
Absolutely.
But what I'm most interested in is what are the motivations that underlie the reason for taking these drugs?
Absolutely.
So that'd be a conversation I'd love
Yes, sir.
to have
Yes, sir.
here in this committee also, to have that.
Yes, sir.
So
Thank you.
thank you.
So, thank you. You briefly touched upon it, but what do we look for in the young people, let's say in high schools, that are signs of abuse from the acute and the long term? Is it, what do we look for in a person?
I just think a lot of it is either change in behavior, and it's so specific a lot of times to the individual drug itself. There's different characteristics for somebody that uses crystal methamphetamine versus cocaine or stuff like that. It's a conversation that would probably take more than a few minutes, and I would love to speak with you over the phone about it. I also think that a lot of this activity of the school-age kids finding the drugs is happening a lot on social media. A lot of it through Snapchat, a lot of it through, that is the telephone of today for the youngsters. I can send a message through Snapchat or Instagram or Facebook, and I can find anything because that is my network of friends right there. And it's the use of social media a lot of times that kind of creates an avenue for drug use.
I see on the news sometimes traffic accidents of driving to elude and crazy driving. What percentage of those kind of encounters with the state police or local police are drug related?
So I read yesterday a journal article, and I have it if anybody wants it. I went to several troopers because I've been off the road for so long. I don't want to give outdated information. There is a large belief that marijuana itself is totally legal and we can do with it as we please. And the amount of drivers that are driving either while or after smoking marijuana has substantially increased. And so I asked the trooper, so what's out there to be able to combat that, to help mitigate that? There is no breath alcohol or alcohol, PBT, they don't have that technology, but there is nationwide training through an organization, and Virginia State Police has been doing it, training troopers to be drug recognition experts, to where if there's a crash or somebody was speeding and is exhibiting signs that they are under the influence of something and alcohol is ruled out, these troopers respond, and there is a step-by-step procedure for, okay, they're probably under the influence of this, then a blood test happens, and then they go along the lines driving under the influence of drugs that way. That right now is the standard that the state police has, and I think that's probably the standard that's not just in Virginia, but that's probably nationwide as well. Training law enforcement officials to have better understanding and to be able to test specific for indicators of drug use as opposed to if it's ruled that it's not alcohol. Absolutely, thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for your presentation. Talking about what Dr. Miller said, I think one of the things that has been most eye-opening to me was, this doesn't happen in my backyard. I mean, it's Goochland, like it doesn't happen until you do a ride-along, and I don't know, our sheriff is very open and encourages ride-alongs with the supervisors and county officials. I do 2 a year, and I just did one 3 weeks ago, and we were doing a drug seizure, and it was in a neighbor, we weren't at the spot, we were on standby, but I never ever would have guessed that what came out of the house would have come out of that house. So I would encourage you to partner with your sheriffs or your police chiefs to see if you could do a ride-along, because you'll be amazed at where it actually is and how much of a prevalent problem it is. I've lived in the county for 22 years. It wasn't until I took this job 4 years ago that I had any idea.
If I could just make a comment on that, I mean, the fentanyl situation that we're in, I went through heart surgery 10 years ago. And after heart surgery, I was prescribed oxycodone, all those kind of things. I will make the argument that fentanyl, we created it. It was created through, because when I started taking it, no kidding, I got medication, was a vat of it this size. And they wanted me to take, then they wanted to prescribe it, another one. I was like, absolutely not, I can feel what's going on with this. Fentanyl is a result of an FDA-approved drug that was pushed out onto the market. And talk about your backyard. I mean, we found that in Bonaire and those areas too, where we'd love to think it's on the other side of the tracks. Ladies and gentlemen, it is not on the other side of the tracks.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
One more question.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Miller and Mr. Spoonhour, comments prompted this. What is the socioeconomic demographics of your average user or supplier?
It does not discriminate. Drug use, fentanyl overdose, it does not discriminate. It is in every community. It affects anyone. I mean, it's, you know, there was this game once called 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon, and how almost every actor, that if you think through your circle, you know, family, colleagues, there is someone in your network that probably is or has been affected by drug use, fentanyl, whatever it is. It does not discriminate, and it affects every household, has the opportunity to affect every household in America. It's a nasty thing that affects the entire, not just our state, but the entire nation.
I want to add something. Thank you so much for this. And thinking about this from a local government perspective, right, which is sort of why we're here, and it's like you mentioned, you referred to the business model, which I think is important for us to think of it that way, right? I mean, especially considering the involvement of the cartels coming into day business. And then thinking of it from a business model, and then thinking about how we respond to that, it's like there's supply, right? There's supply side things, there's demand, and then there's like responding to the issue. And there are probably things that each of those that local government can do, but it seems to me that local government's response here is mostly on the demand side and the responding side. And so I like when you talked about the recommendations. You clearly made a point several times about the importance of Narcan, and I would challenge all of the jurisdictions here to think about how we can get Narcan out in our communities more and have it available more. We have whatever, you know, I'm not gonna be able to butcher the word right now. We have those for heart issues everywhere, right? At some point, we made a proactive decision as government that we are going to put these everywhere because it is a problem we want to be able to respond to. And so I think that is probably something that if we take something away from this, it's like, how can we get that out more in our community? And we can do that while stipulating that, like, look, we gotta solve supply too. And folks are working on that. But there are things that we can do to acknowledge that this is a problem.
Absolutely.
So just wanted to add that comment.
Absolutely, thank you.
Well, just to add, Mr. Bass, if we are successful in making it more available, part of the messaging can be because of the incredibly high risk of death from what's going on,
Right.
which gets back to the education that we're trying to do and that we,
And
as
the
local
demand
leaders,
side
are in
of
a
that,
position
for
with things, right? It doesn't have to be a condoning of behavior. In fact, it could be the opposite, but you're still being prepared.
You said that the xylazine does not, the fentanyl, the Narcan doesn't work with that? And is that the one that's also eating flesh of people?
Xylazine is not, I would, if you can email me, it's right here, but it will not come out, I'll get you the name of that.
Okay.
There was one years ago called Crocodile that was literally eating the flesh away, but there is another one that is no longer that, and the name escapes me.
So those are two different things that are also new coming out?
Yes.
And do we know if there's any counter to the xylazine?
As of, while I was preparing this presentation, I could not find anything. Just like the analog carfentanil, which is a very, very, very powerful fentanyl. There is no, Narcan will not touch that either. Fortunately, we don't see that much in this jurisdiction, but as of right now, I don't know of anything that will help medical intervention of xylazine.
Is xylazine similar to to ketamine? Cause that was the other one that was the horse drug that.
No, that was, people purchase that separately, but the xylazine is just, it's powerful in and of itself on alone to where they're using that just like they did fentanyl as a mixing agent. Anybody else?
Yeah, I got a few if there's no one
Yes, sir.
else. One, how do vape pens fit into this equation? And is there something we can do as an organization or in localities to prevent companies from advertising to children with their vape pens? Because that seems to me a way it's getting into the hands of the youth.
It is, and so hash oil, BHO. You get your marijuana, you put it in a device, typically a glass vial, and you soak it with butane, and then that butane kind of works through the marijuana and pulls out the oil. And then the butane is heated off of that, and you have hash oil, which is a very potent dosage of THC. A lot of people put those, a lot of teenagers use that, put that in their vape pens. I have had conversations with school officials local to where I live of teenagers that there's one pen and one will go to the restroom and use the vape pen of THC, and then the next one goes and the next one goes. There's also a trend that we've seen the last little bit of DMT. They extract DMT from the bark and then put it in vegetable oil, heat it up, let it cool down, and it creates something that they can put in a vape pen as well. I think it's definitely something that high school, probably middle school age kids see. I just, other than being a parent and being active in my community, I don't see it routinely with my job, just kind of from personal experience. But yeah, I think it's absolutely, it's something that is a danger for, and it's, I don't like the term gateway drug because pretty much it's the environment that creates the gateway. But I definitely think that that is something that is a part of that gateway experience that leads into youngsters down a bad road.
Yeah, I was at I did a DEA training, Drug Enforcement Agency training, and it scared me to learn that the vape pen burns so low that if fentanyl is put into it, it doesn't get burnt out. And then the kids don't realize it, they're just, they think they're taking in some apple cinnamon and they might be taking in something else. And so that was just really scary to learn. Overall, do we see drug abuse, drug usage going up overall? Is it staying the same and we're just looking at the increase of certain drugs? Or can you speak to that at all?
We're definitely seeing an uptick in submissions, which means that obviously drugs are being seized from individuals more, at least the three that we talked about, as it had been in previous. Now, that's both, a submission is both if we make a traffic stop and we arrest somebody for possession, or if we intercept someone that's coming down with a large quantity to then put into the community. I see that uptick. You gotta get submissions somehow, and we're coming in contact with more people that have it. So that's kind of what I have received from the data.
All right, well, thank you.
Thank you very much.
I have one
Yeah.
last question. You know, one of the drugs that I did not see on there, if we were here 30 years ago, I feel like marijuana would have been on there. And so are we concerned that we're now accepting of marijuana and that one of these other drugs like cocaine will be accepting of at some point and we're just scared of the fentanyl in it? Or kind of, can you talk just quickly about where that would be?
As far as marijuana, with the law changes that took place a few years ago, I don't think law enforcement hasn't said we're done with it, but I think it's still in a time of, it's very difficult to understand the law and possession, and it's still a big issue. But I think that marijuana's here and it's legal. I think it's not impossible, but it is a very difficult thing for law enforcement to be able to change the minds of people who said no, but it's legal, it's here. I think people are still being charged, but even the lab, the Department of Forensic Science, anytime anybody was charged with a possession charge, whether it be 1 gram or 1 pound, we could send it to the lab. Now they have test kits, and they say up to a certain amount, test it on the road yourself or test it at the scene where you find it. Don't send it here because we are inundated with so many other drugs.
Could I add something to that?
Yes.
There's a distinction between drugs and medicine. Okay, medicinal. There's a medicinal quality to marijuana, and that's where it gets really complicated. We're back to the issue related to the different medications that are prescribed for depression or anxiety and all those things. A lot of folks have found that those particular medications are ineffective and with some pretty terrible side effects, where folks have found that marijuana has been a very good way of treating depression and anxiety and those kind of things. So that's where it kind of gets into a gray area. When you start abusing it, I'd make an argument that now you've entered into the world of drugs, because now you're trying to use it for a change in consciousness in a different way. So that's where it gets really muddied in a little bit.
Marijuana is not legal to smoke in public. It's just legal to have it in your pocket, right?
It is legal to possess up to 1 ounce in public.
But it's not legal to smoke in public.
I believe it's either class 2 or class 3 misdemeanor to smoke in public.
All right, well, I thank you. I greatly appreciate this. This is very informative. This topic came to my head recently from watching a documentary on what California is doing to address it. And then the investigator went to Portugal, went to Netherlands, and everyone seems to be trying to figure out a way to deal with this, because as you said, a lot of it's just medical treatment for some people, or illness treatment, or some of it's addiction, but a lot of it has to deal with trying to solve a problem. So thank you, I appreciate it.
Absolutely, thank y'all, and if any one of you need me or wanna have conversations or do another presentation, do not hesitate to reach out.
And the slides will be posted on the website. Thank you.
The smell out of it.
All right, let's see where we are on our agenda. All right, so member comment from localities, any updates, anybody? We have our DACO VML legislation. That's attached, right?
They're just linked, yeah.
Yeah.
Just for information.
Right. So any locality updates? All right, well, if you have nothing else to do and you want to celebrate, come to Ashland the Sunday before Thanksgiving. We have our holiday Old Town Parade. It's always a great event. I think we're the first to kick it off as the season goes on and everyone else has their parade.
Will there be trains?
What's that?
Will there be trains?
There are always.
There will always be trains. We guarantee you there will be trains. The joint, committee for the House and City, there was, Dr. Newbell and Mr. Engel, y'all came together to make,
We did, so that committee's
There we
met twice
yes.
relatively recently. They seem to be looking at maybe taking a very small bite out of a very big elephant, but at least they're trying to take a bite.
Yeah.
Dr. Newbell and I have responded in writing to the committee's reach out for community input, and I believe a copy of that is on page 73 that was submitted to the committee. And we'll continue to engage with them, but it's gonna be a tough road to hoe to get to taking a real significant chunk out of that elephant. We're gonna keep on marching.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
just one thing, we have multiple Christmas tree lighting ceremonies coming up in Chesterfield County in the first week of December.
All right.
They're continuing this from last night. My district's the only one that doesn't have a Christmas tree, so I'll cut down my own damn Christmas tree.
We're gonna make sure she has one next year.
Yeah. We could fast track it right now if necessary.
Yes, we can. We have actually offered to do that.
Right.
Anyone with a Christmas tree, go to Chesterfield.
Rockwood Park, great place.
That's what I told her last night.
We can do it, we can make it happen.
I said that last night.
All right, anything else new to come before us?
Just a quick comment on the JLARC. I think it's important. What came out of VACO, I serve on the board, is that's the primary push from coming out of VACO is about JLARC, that JLARC study. So counties throughout the entire Commonwealth, that's the number one agenda item out of everything.
That's good.
Anything else?
Just one quick comment.
Yes.
I want to thank the leadership and Ms. Schickel for continuing excellence in the meetings, informative, hot topics. I live for these meetings. Thank you.
Oh my.
Thanks. Well, good. Our next meeting will be a joint meeting, December 5th, here with all of the bodies. And